because he knows I'm mad at him. I got a significant load management bone to pick with my buddy Jay Williams, and we're going to have that fight a little bit later this morning. But, Louis Riddick, let's start with your guy.
Let's do it.
John Gruden, Raiders-Chargers last night. Final scheduled primetime game for the Raiders in Oakland. First quarter, Phillip Rivers had already thrown an interception. We call that foreshadowing because here comes another, and it's going back to the house.
Look, Phillip all night long was tipping off his passes, and Eric Harris was on it all night. Look, Phillip, without a doubt, was a little bit worried about the protection as far as some of the injuries he's had on his offensive line. Wasn't a good showing for him on the road.
Second time in his career he's thrown picks on the first two series of a game. That was a 56-yard touchdown for Eric Harris. But the Chargers, down 10-0, they would answer. This is Hunter Henry in the back of the end zone, capping off a 16-play drive. But watch out, celebrating can be hazardous to your health. Oh, he takes it right off the face. It's 10-7. Now, huge moment in the game. Under 5 minutes to go in the second. Phillip Rivers throws another interception, but hold everything. It's called back on a penalty. Raiders were offside, and instead it turns into a Melvin Gordon touchdown.
Yeah, this is one of those things where you thought the momentum was starting to leave the building and that maybe the Raiders were going to mistake their way into a loss. But Derek Carr had an answer.
Derek Carr did have an answer right before the half. They're going the other way. That's Alec Ingold. And the Raiders have a 17-14 lead before halftime. Good game. Fourth quarter. Chargers are down 3. Second and goal. They had long drives last night. This one was 12 plays, 80 yards. Austin Eckler touchdown.
Yeah, they were very well balanced all night long. Melvin Gordon was running the ball ferociously, which obviously later in the football game, the head coach had to answer for why they didn't run the ball late in the game.
Raiders, meanwhile, trying to have an answer. That's Hunter Renfrow for 13 yards and a first down. Then later in the drive, Josh Jacobs. How about this rookie taking it to the house for the lead?
Yeah, this kid has just been incredible all year long. He has, without a doubt, brought balance to this football team, and Derek Carr continues to excel on fourth quarter game-winning drive.
But they would miss the extra point, so a field goal's going to beat him. Here's Phillip Rivers trying to bring his team down. That's a fourth down play. They've got it stopped, but hold everything. There's defensive holding, so a fresh set of downs for the Chargers, and here they are. First down, Rivers, Jason Moore, no good.
Look, he kept all night long again. You saw him looking at his primary receivers. Raider defensive backs had a good beat on where he was trying to go with the football, and the pass rush was a factor all night long.
This is a third down play for Henry, no good. Rivers in the end would go 0 for 7 on this final drive of opportunities to try and keep his team's game and maybe season alive. This is the fourth down play, and it's essentially a punt. Rivers throws 3 picks and 2 others that are called back. 17 of 31, 207 yards. Raiders, a big win. They improved to 5-4, and John Gruden was celebrating with the fans.
We got a lot of resilient guys. They're going to keep competing. You know, you may beat us, but we're going to be a hard out. We are very happy with our foundation, our process. A lot of guys deserve credit, but I'm exhausted. 2 games in 4 days is something I hate.
I obviously wish I'd have played better when you turn it over, when you throw 2 interceptions early. I mean, the last one counts, I know, on the board, but the 2 interceptions and then 8 plays not getting anything. I'm disappointed I didn't do a better job in those 2 spots especially.
Boy, there's a lot to say here this morning. Let's start by saying this. The Raiders were called crazy when they traded away Khalil Mack. Well, they have 13 touchdowns from rookies this year, almost double the next closest team in the league. Only time they ever had more, in 1982, Marcus Allen himself scored 14 touchdowns as a rookie. So I'll turn to you guys here. Bobby, I'll start with you. These Raiders, they've put it together. They've had a ridiculous schedule. They didn't play an actual home game from the middle of September until last week. And here they are, 5-4, with games coming up against the Bengals and the Jets.
Yeah, this team could conceivably, or should probably be, 7-4 and in the thick of the playoff race. And I think when we look back to the beginning of the season, if you would have told me, hey, we're 10, 11, 12 weeks in, the Raiders are a game out potentially of first place in the AFC West, trailing the Chiefs, a chance to potentially make a playoff run, I would have said you were crazy. But John Gruden has done a masterful job with this, and they're getting it not just because, of the skill players and him wanting to throw the ball, but it's them pounding the football with Jacobs.
And Mark, let's talk about the quarterback in particular, because we always joke, John Gruden's favorite quarterback is always the next one he can get. But Carr's playing pretty well, and to the point you made in the meeting this morning, he's not turning the ball over.
He's playing his butt off. He's taking care of the football, and they're doing it without that splash player at receiver. I remember we were all sitting here when Antonio Brown left, and I was guilty of it just like everybody else. What are they going to do? What's Derek Carr going to do? And look what he's done. He's done it with players almost like Peyton Manning. When you had receivers that you don't know their names, they're not household guys. He's completing the ball at a high efficiency rate. He's getting the ball to his backs and his tight ends. I mean, Gruden's got to be thrilled with it.
It's not just good. I mean, the guy is right now hitting career highs in yards per attempt, completion percentage, passer rating, touchdown percentage. And his fourth quarter drive record, touchdown winning drive record, is second only to Matthew Stafford since 2014. I mean, what more do you want from him? He quite honestly has answered the bell in every way. And he said in the preseason, I'm in the second year of this offense. I know exactly what John wants. I'm in lockstep with him as far as how he wants it executed in critical moments. And last night he showed that.
But you also mentioned Josh Jacobs. Let's not forget that the run game has really helped out Derek Carr tremendously because he doesn't have that pressure anymore. He only has the pressure, as you said, maybe on one drive or two to make a few plays. And that's really what being in sync is with the offense. It's like, look, Josh Jacobs, we know what we're going to be offensively and we know the identity we want to have. All I need to do is make 4 or 5 plays in the game and we're good.
Just one or two drives, just at the end of the game. No big deal, right?
No big deal. Not at all. Not at all.
To sort of put a ribbon on this, and we have a lot more to say, including a lot more about the quarterback situation for the Chargers that we'll do a little later in the program. But to sort of put a ribbon on this, you've been high on this for a while. John Gruden gets there. He brings in his guy Mayock. They're starting to put it together. They get heavily criticized for trading away Khalil Mack. Yeah. But here they come.
Well, I had the benefit, Greeny, of being out there in preseason during training camp and talking to some of these guys, spending some time with John. I understand kind of how John really looks at football. I played for him in '98 when he was in Oakland. And he's one of the better teachers in the NFL. And he's one of those guys who's kind of miscast as being a typical West Coast, throw the football all over the place, finesse style coach. He's anything but that. This football team is a blue collar, downhill, ram the ball down your throat, play good defense type of philosophy. And he's getting the people right now who are young, who are willing to be coached, who are willing to buy into what he's selling. And what you see is throughout the course of a game, this team believes in what he's selling them. And look, I mean, really, other than Josh Jacobs, think of their fourth-round pick, Max Crosby, their defensive end. He typifies the type of guys that they're looking for. And the results speak for themselves.
And everybody kind of smirked a little bit when Mayock got hired, but I think this is what you have, and this is what you find when the GM and the coach are on the same page with the type of player you want for both sides of the football. You're able to see that type of success, and it's manifesting itself now.
I'll say it again. The Raiders are going to make the playoffs in the AFC this year. Meanwhile, on the other side, we could be seeing the end of an era. We'll talk about that more as we continue. But on this Football Friday, let us get now to what is the biggest game of the year, and there isn't any question about it. Tomorrow, LSU, Alabama. Crimson Tide, a 6-point favorite at Caesars. They've won 31 straight home games dating back to 2015. That's the longest streak in SEC history. LSU, meanwhile, is led by quarterback Joe Burrow, who is first in the nation in completion percentage. He's completing 79% of his passes this year, which is ridiculous. It's on pace to break the all-time FBS record for a single season. On the other side, tanking for Tua, remaining a game-time decision after undergoing surgery to repair a high ankle sprain. He leads the nation in total QBR and is second in completion percentage. So this one has all the makings. You couldn't ask for much more from a football game than we're going to get here. So we've spent all week talking about what's at stake. Now it's time to start talking about what's actually going to happen. Vilma, I'm going to start with you. Yep. What is the number one thing from an Alabama standpoint you're looking for from their offense to win the ball?
Offensive line has to protect Tua. Offensive line doesn't protect Tua, and Tua somehow is out of this game because of injury, then it is not. There's no chance Alabama can keep up points-wise with LSU to win this game. So you're watching. The offensive line, by the way, has done a phenomenal job all season long. But when you're talking about now a guy that's hurt, and I'm telling you what I would do, I would blitz this guy early and often, and that would press the wide receivers so I can take away those now screens, those bubble screens that he likes to dump off easily to receivers and force him to run. You force him to run, maybe in the first quarter, it may not affect him. Third quarter, fourth quarter, that's when his ankle, he'll start to feel it.
How about from a defensive standpoint, Bobby Carpenter, from an Alabama standpoint?
Well, Nick Saban, Bill Belichick disciple, one of the things Bill always preaches is disrupting the wide receivers at the line of scrimmage, throwing off the timing of those routes, and that's going to be a big piece of this. LSU, the only team in college football with multiple receivers that average more than 100 yards per game in Jefferson and in Chase. So Joe Burrow's been highly accurate. He's had great timing and rhythm. They need to press them. They need to disrupt the timing of that to throw that offense off.
This is not, your father's Alabama defense, right? We always think of Nick Saban as having these legendary defenses. That's not how they're built this particular season. Now let's go to the other side. Bobby, LSU on offense, what do they have to do to win the game?
Oh, they got to control. They got to take care of the football. In Alabama, when you go back since 2008, they've lost 4 games at home, -9 in the turnover margin in those games. And that guy right there, Joe Burrow, 30 touchdowns, 4 interceptions this year, one of the most efficient quarterbacks in college football, and his passing completion percentage, it's not based on checkdowns. He throws the ball down the field, but he does it in a safe way, so they cannot give Bama short fields, and Joe Burrow will not let that happen.
To this point, he's been the best player in the country. Vilma, what does the Alabama defense do to change that?
Pressure. I mean, Joe Burrow has never been pressured by a forefront defensive line. It's always been manufactured pressure, and because of that manufactured pressure, he would light up the secondary if it's man coverage or easy zone. I'm looking at Terrell Lewis right here, who has 6 of the 19 sacks for Alabama. He needs to create havoc all game long, and Joe Burrow has to feel that. If he doesn't feel it and his clock isn't rushed in his head, it's going to be easy pickings for him all day.
What do you make of all this, Sanchez, as you sit here and listen to some of this individual breakdown? What does this game come down to for you?
Don't let Joe Burrow get into a rhythm. This kid is lights out. I spent time with him. We'll talk about it later in the show, Greeny, but this kid, I'm all in on him. These scouts are drooling over him, but really, it's this running back, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Remember this name. This kid, after Joe Burrow threw a pick in the Auburn game, he rushed the ball 5 straight times and then took him 55 yards down the field for a touchdown. This kid, he gets him out of trouble. He's his security blanket along with Thaddeus Moss, Randy's son. Those are his guys that have to have a sneaky